Hello and welcome to the lab. In this video, we're going to cover a few ways to get started with your Linux journey. This video is for you if you're interested in learning Linux, but you don't know what your options are for getting started. This is not a distro video, and if you're a Linux veteran, there probably won't be anything new to learn here. Let's go ahead and get started. Starting off at the top of the list is WSL. WSL, or Windows Subsystem for Linux, is a great way to get started if you already own a PC or laptop that has a CPU with virtualization support. No worries if you're unsure, the installation process will let you know if virtualization isn't enabled. And even if it does, there's a chance there's a BIOS setting that is disabled. You can search for the make and model of your device to find out if it supports virtualization and where that setting would be. If you're uncomfortable with making BIOS changes, then the second option might be for you. WSL has come a long way since its initial release in 2016. Is it perfect? No, but it is a great way to get started with Linux without adding too much overhead to your computer or figuring out how to dual boot. To get started with WSL, you can go one of two routes: the Microsoft Store or an elevated PowerShell prompt. The store might be an easier option to start with. Just search for WSL and install the Windows subsystem for Linux. Once that's done, come back to the store and install a distribution of your choice. For this video, since I already have WSL installed, I'll show you how easy it is to add another distro. In an elevated PowerShell window, I can type WSL-list to list what Windows subsystem for Linux distributions are installed. WSL-list-online will show you what options are available to install via PowerShell. Here, I'm going to install Oracle Linux 8.7. And just like that, I've got a new distribution installed on my Windows computer. How easy. The next option is a bootable USB drive. For this option, you'll need a USB drive, typically 2 gigabytes or greater, depending on the image that you choose, software to write the image, and an image to use. Note that some imagers, such as the Raspberry Pi imager and my personal favorite, Fedora Media Writer, have the ability to download and write your image in one step. Finally, you'll need to know how to boot your device from the USB drive. Please note this process will erase your USB drive, so make sure there's nothing important on there. And when booting into an unfamiliar operating system, be on the lookout for pop-ups when you first log in. They may try to get you to install the operating system. Be aware that doing so will erase your hard drive. Once you do boot your USB drive, you should be able to use the operating system typically without having to log in. Be sure to check the documentation for the distro you used if it does. There is typically a username and password posted somewhere if one is required. Please note that these USB sticks are ephemeral. Anything that you save to them will not exist should you reboot or lose power. These are typically meant to be used for testing a distro, using various recovery tools in another operating system, or installing a new version of an operating system on a device. Here we'll download Ubuntu Desktop 22.04.3 and burn it to a USB stick. Once you have the file downloaded, select the image source, select your USB drive, again making sure there's nothing important on there, and clicking Write. After a few minutes, this process will finish and you'll have a bootable USB drive. I found this ThinkCenter M93P online for around $80. Came with an SSD and Windows 10 installed, and I swapped out the drive and installed Oracle Linux 8 on it. Happen to have an old laptop laying around? Use the USB drive from the previous step and give that old hardware new life. To wrap this up, there's also virtualization. While WSL requires hardware support for virtualization, to call it a virtual machine is a bit of a stretch. Here we're talking about software that you can run on your PC or install on bare metal that will allow you to create a virtual machine from an ISO, just like the live USB step. I'm not going to cover this step in detail, as it's a bit more advanced for a getting started with Linux video, but feel free to check out these options on screen as well. I'm sure some of them will be topics for future videos, so be sure to subscribe if that's something you look forward to. I'll be sure to drop some links in the description below. In closing, I've covered a couple ways that you can get started with an installation of Linux. If you've liked this video, let me know by clicking like, and drop a comment about what you'd like to see next. And before you go, just remember that if you can be anything today, be kind.